Hi, Emma. Before the class starts, can I have a question for you?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our expert talks and labs, part of UN Women AI School. Today, we're going to have an exciting session about the AI governance landscape and a quick crash course on AI governance and policy. We're super excited to have our dear expert, Paola Gálvez. Paola, you have her bio, but just to highlight some of her amazing experience related to AI governance policies. She's also one of the leads in the AI ethics and women in AI. And she has a lot of many amazing things. I'll recommend to connect with her on LinkedIn, also to see the opportunities and insights she shares. Without further ado, we're gonna start this session with a quick presentation from Paola, and then we'll have three different segments for Q&A. So after each segment of the presentation, we'll be opening the space for Q&A, and we'll have more space and at the end to have more questions and reflection at the end. Paola, take us to the AI governance and forum. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all of your expertise and knowledge.
It's my pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. In fact, yes, I am more than delighted to be in the UN Women AI School. I truly believe that this is an initiative that creates changes, and I work in AI governance, which is regulation, policies, right? And most of the time it's just written, but these kind of courses brings the declaration, the text to action. So congratulations to all on being here. I'm very honored to provide this session to share my knowledge, and it's more importantly to exchange ideas with you. Let's start. Just pass the slide. And I would love to start by understanding, what do you think? How do you feel about artificial intelligence in your work? So if you please can access menti.com, you can do it through the QR that is in your screen. And please type up to 3 words expressing how you feel about AI in your work. It will be wonderful. We will create a word cloud. And that way we will see how this school is feeling about it. Let me see if we have some words already. Don't be shy. And I will change my screen at the moment so that you can also see what this class is answering, how you guys are feeling. Just you will be seeing that in a second. It will, yes. Okay, let's read it together. I see. Helpful, scary, fearsome, cautious, excited, powerful, intelligent, awesome. Don't be shy. I see that more people are answering. We still have some seconds. But I can see both sides, both sides of the coin, right? Creative, concerned. This is new. Rapidly evolving. You feel this is a tool. Security, massive, helpful, scary. Well, this is wonderful. You guys can continue adding how you feel about AI, but let's go back to the presentation. Thank you for this. I get an idea of mixed feelings. And in fact, when you will see the screen in a second, you will see, yes, you're seeing that, yeah, how the world is also feeling. In June, actually this month, Ipsos published the AI Monitor 2025. And we can see an atmosphere of both worry and excitement surrounding the use of artificial intelligence. As you can see in the image, in fact, there is more AI enthusiasm running high across Asia. Because if you see to the question, how much do you agree or disagree with the following? Products and services using AI make me nervous or make me excited. The more positive one towards excitement is Thailand, India, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, South Korea. Proud to say that my country as well is very excited. I'm Peruvian, is there with Mexico as well. And towards more of the nervous part is Europe and the Anglosphere. So this is just to say, and in particular in many of the sessions, I would say the majority of the sessions that I do, we have these mixed feelings because artificial intelligence is a technology, is a tool that brings a lot of potential. We've seen benefits already, but we've seen also the negative impacts. So that's why people is feeling both sides. One last information about the Ipsos AI Monitor of the year is the trust that people have on governments to regulate AI responsibly. And in fact, Asia in particular enjoys higher trust in AI regulation. Just to mention, Singapore, it's 81% mentioning that they trust, so they show confidence that their governments will regulate AI responsibly. Indonesia shows 76% confidence, Malaysia 73%, Thailand 70%. And that's why when you see in the graphic, the high trust goes in these countries. But I know you guys already been in this course for a while, right? So you might already know what's on artificial intelligence plate. I will do a very short remember a moment so that we can discuss the challenges that these technology is bringing. And because public policy and governments start thinking about regulating something, is because there is a policy problem affecting the public. But let's go to this question. What's on AI's plate? First of all, and you may recognize this answer already, data. And I love to say that data is the oxygen of artificial intelligence. And also, the better the data you have to train your AI system, the better the outcome and the system will deploy. But data alone cannot make it work, right? We need computing power and, of course, the energy. But you may be probably already thinking that with the energy we got, the huge impact on the planet that artificial intelligence is bringing. But this is not only the three components that artificial intelligence bring. We also need to mention necessary ingredients, seasoning, and chefs for this recipe, which are the algorithms. You all know what is that. That's the recipe, right? How it will work. But with infrastructure, we don't do anything of the GPOs. And that at the moment, only some countries are able to produce. And of course, the human labor. The great amount of people that are working behind in content moderation, reviewing the data to train. So there is a lot. And this is the big picture, let's say. I hope it's graphic enough so that you can remember. And this brings challenges, right? Let's mention, for instance, with the data that I said that I refer as to the oxygen of artificial intelligence. It brings challenges such as protecting personal data and privacy, right? The system must only gather or collect the data that is needed for the purpose of the system. You don't need to go further. Why would a system or would a company need my fingerprints if we are doing translation or automation anonymous to make anonymous documents, right? But also it means ensuring consent and transparency in data collection, and preventing the use of bias or discriminatory data sets that would only widen these disparities that we already have in our society. With computing power, as you know, computing capacity determines who can build and control powerful AI models, which at the moment are concentrated in wealthy countries or large corporations. And that's when we have the monopoly risk. In terms of energy, maybe you have discussed or not yet, that training these large models consume vast amounts of electricity, which is often from carbon-intensive sources. And I have not written it there, but the consumption of water that these data centers need to be cooled is huge. So in this sense, what policymakers or people that are setting the rules for artificial intelligence are thinking how to ensure that AI innovation does not undermine climate goals. I mentioned infrastructure, yes, but global digital, it's at the moment showing inequality. We have technological dependency from some very powerful nations, and we risk monopolization by a few tech giants. What we are looking, our countries are looking at the moment is for sovereignty over digital infrastructure. In terms of algorithms, which is the receipt that the rules that make artificial intelligence create the outputs or responses, they're often seen as black boxes because they make decisions that are difficult to audit or understand. How did this system end up with this solution? Algorithms need transparency and explainability, need to have accountability mechanisms in the way that if this system creates harm, there is agency, some organization, individual behind that will be accountable for that. And last but not least is the poorly compensated workers to perform content moderation, data labeling, testing the outputs. We've got a huge amount of people that are working with this. And in fact, they rarely know which system they are training, to which company they are working to, because it's a work that is very fragmented, isolated, and there are several reports that have already showcased that these people are suffering from mental illnesses. These are just a few challenges of the elements that compose artificial intelligence being able to be around us. And I would love to ask you, after seeing this, you will see a Zoom poll at the moment. Let's vote on which of these areas worries you the most. These AI challenges that I presented, what make you think that worry, concerned? There were some people that already were concerned at the beginning. So please cast your vote and let's see how this audience is coming up with these situations that artificial intelligence is bringing. Okay, let's do some. Let's go up to the minute. What do you think, Emad?
Yeah.
But these are situations that are happening, right? And sometimes we are even involved in these situations without even knowing it. I would say all of us that are adults in the room, we go to the bank, we use social media, we look for something to shop online. There are algorithms that are working behind and showing us results, could be biased or not. We're almost to the minute, and I think we could end the poll. What do you think?
Okay.
To show our participants what you all think. So in fact, we've got, interestingly, in fact, half of the room considers that bias or exploitative use of data is one of the areas that worries the most in the room, indeed. Thank you, Sojin. In fact, yeah, I made you guys chose only one, but there are many or all aspects that deeply concern. Thank you for sharing, and I deeply appreciate that you guys are active in the chat. Happy to read you all. And in fact, we're going to a quick space of Q&A or discussion reflections to go into the policy and governance part. If someone have a question or a thought that you would like to share, this is the moment.
So we can take one or two questions related to that first segment, and then we will have two more.
Yeah, there is still more content
coming up. If you have a burning question, feel free to unmute, raise your hand, or write it in the chat. And we'll give you 10 seconds to claim your Q&A spot. Okay, Noel, feel free to unmute and ask your question. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Hi, Paola. I just wanted to ask that I was coincidentally also doing a school vis-a-vis AI relevance in Pakistan for sustainable development with UCL and Oxford practitioners and academicians. And one of our panelists in that school, in one of the expert talks, was an academician, a computer scientist from Oxford Martin School. And this very interesting thought that she left in my mind was how a lot of people by AI do not know if it's AI in terms of it being generative AI, or if it's just in very broad layperson terms, machines separating women or people or humans in workforce for that matter, or is it the deep rooted learning when it comes to if it's deep learning, if it's machine learning, basically just getting into the intrinsics of what AI is like and how it works. So when it comes to providing a sort of an integrative mechanism on how we make the whole world, or at least a sort of a democratized way of making people aware of AI. I know this school in itself is a living embodiment and effort to do that, to increase equitability on knowledge. But there are a lot of people who do not even have layperson knowledge of AI. They just know that it's probably machines replacing humans. So irrespective of getting into the intrinsics and the nuances of these things, on a broad level, what are the efforts that can be done to ensure or to better equitability on basic knowledge of AI? Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. We'll take one more question and then we can answer them. Sharia, if you know, unmute, introduce yourself and then ask your question, please.
Hi, I'm Shreya Gupta and I'm from India. So I just wanted to ask, when we talk to organizations who are actually responsible for building AI or implementing AI, then this question of how they are utilizing the resources, how much of water consumption is going into AI, all of these questions, they have a very standardized response that we are a responsible company. Similar responses that they have to activities like CSR, they have it for sustainability and climate change as well. So how do we ensure that a company is actually doing their bit, or it's just a greenwashing of sorts? How do we ensure that?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great questions.
Those are great questions. Thanks so much. And I knew that this part would spark this kind of thoughts. I appreciate it. Noel, thank you for first of all your insights. And I'm glad that this session that you mentioned with UCL and Oxford Martin School, and myself studied in Oxford at another school, the Globethics School of Government, but in fact, very good practitioners over there. And I do agree that one of the main problems of our society at the moment is that society itself, grassroots, the people that are being most impacted by artificial intelligence are not aware of it. They don't understand how it works. And as you said, many of them are thinking that they are machines replacing humans. But I will complement to that a big majority of the society is now considering artificial intelligence in a way that they do not critically assess the outcomes of an AI system, and having large language models or generative AI such as Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, etc., the one you use and prefer, they provide an answer that is the truth. And people is not even assessing or asking for sources, right? And that's a huge problem. To your question, how can we do to ensure equitability, access to this knowledge? I'm sorry to say that I don't have the correct answer or the only one. I will provide my humble opinion. And in fact, that's where we need public policies. And this is a multi-stakeholder response. In fact, I have worked in the government. No, solely a government will do this, because the government do not have the skills and knowledge for that. International organizations play a big role, but alone cannot do it either. Civil society plays a key role, very important role. There are civil society organizations that are preparing themselves to understand what is AI. And in fact, many of you are here because that's the connection with society. And key for that is translating the knowledge in pieces that is easy, digestible. We cannot speak tech in tech terms with society because it's not the way they will really remember it and that it stays with them. But if we use examples of real life to show them, and that comes with government programs, academia, civil society, that would be the way. That's my opinion. And Shreya, thank you for asking that. In fact, it's unfortunate that we do not have data on the exact impact on the planet at the moment. There's no single report that has shown. There are several reports or research at the moment, but with differentiated information. And why? Because companies do not disclose this information yet. Some would say that making imperative to share this information could be the solution, but not all countries are going that way. But we need to find the incentives so that it's not the greenwashing that you mentioned. I think we have 2 minutes left, so can I read the question that is written? Thank you, Eman, for the question. Who's liable when an AI system causes harm? The developer, the deployer, or the AI system itself? That answer will be discussed in the next section. In fact, thank you, Eman. And for now, I can tell you at the moment, there's no single answer because it depends on how it is governed in a country. So we will see, and it depends on the definition that the particular country has made, if it's the deployer or the provider, etc. We will see that in a bit. What is the future of AI in rural communities, asks Armen, and the region post-conflicts where women do not have access to internet? Thank you for the question. And actually, this is a question for all of us to reflect, because there's no single answer to that, unfortunately. Not even governments, but what I can say is that to have an answer to the question, to include rural communities, we need to start including them in these discussions. And as a step 0 is providing connectivity to the whole country, because there is still a big percentage of the world that is unconnected. And if we don't have that, then we won't even have artificial intelligence. So great question to ask all. And from our spaces, let's try to work and bring them all to the discussion. Shall we continue, Ahmed?
Yes.
Well, we've discussed about the challenges. And when there are challenges and public policy problems affecting society, policymakers, international organizations stand up and try to find a solution. And that's why in 2019, the OECD published the OECD AI principles. And what you are seeing in the screen at the moment are 8 international frameworks that apply to artificial intelligence at the moment. But as I said, this is only international. So some of them are only guidelines, some of them, no, in fact, yes, it's guidelines because, yes, are mandatory for them to apply in their own regulation, but it doesn't make them a hard law. So at the moment, only frameworks. With the OECD AI principles, those were the first one to be approved. Not only country members of OECD adhered, but also other countries. And these are the ones that have most influence at the moment, because they have influenced, for instance, the development of the G7 AI principles and the Hiroshima AI process. They have also influenced the G20 AI principles. So they are mainly the same when we see what they are looking for, which is transparency, accountability, explainability, fairness, privacy. These are the principles that should guide the development and deployment of artificial intelligence. The UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI came in 2021 after a multi-stakeholder process prepared by external experts from different sectors. And this was approved and adhered by 193 member states, having the 194th state as United States adhered after that. So this is the first global comprehensive framework for artificial intelligence. And this is the one differentiating from the OECD that includes chapters in particularly specifically on gender and on environment. And that's why also the tools that were created to help member states implement this recommendation, make them a reality and not only state in a commitment, analyze all the regulation, policies, programs that have on gender, for instance. This is on the UNESCO recommendation. We also have the Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence, Human Rights, and Democratic Values. This was approved in 2024, and it is open since September last year for signatories. Not only European countries can sign. In fact, in the negotiation, participated countries such as Japan, Argentina. So this is open as a framework to guide international law. But we've seen that the process to be signed by different nations has been slow at the moment. Of course, then it comes, and I will go to the UNGA resolution on AI. So we stay on the UN and then I go to regional. But the UNGA resolution was also approved in 2024 in March. And this one goes to establish the commitment of the member states to use artificial intelligence to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and with the commitment from developed countries to support developing countries in leverage the power of artificial intelligence. As we know, the use of AI is increasing the economy and productivity of some countries, and in that sense, broadening the disparities that we already had. So that's why the UNGA resolution come to further and promote this collaboration among countries. Regions also started working on this because they saw the different impact that AI was having in their societies. And the African Union came with a continental AI strategy, setting up principles, and is very prompt to innovation and use of AI to help productivity of the countries in the African Union. And also the ASEAN approved and published the Guide on AI Governance and Ethics. And this year, early this year, in February, they approved the guidelines on generative AI. So if you are interested, happy to provide the links to access, but these are documents that are only guiding principles, not really long ones, but that it state at least a regional position on how they would like to use and benefit from AI, with no red flags or prohibited actions for the moment. I remember somebody asked, I think, I know you asked about the responsibility. That is not here, for instance. Those are guiding principles to see how this technology will develop. To the other side, we have the hard law, which is mandatory rules, how artificial intelligence will be used and deployed in the countries that have approved this. That's the law. And normally when we have hard law, we have obligations and consequences when there is no compliance, and that means fines, etc. So in your screen, you're seeing the 5 countries that have regulations, and let's see in which way. You see the United States of America and China at the top. Important that you leave this room knowing that the USA, and of course you didn't know, they don't have a comprehensive federal AI law. At the federal level, they don't have it, and in fact, what they have was an executive order on artificial intelligence and ethics that President Biden approved. But since the new administration took office, it was replaced by the executive order that is called Removing Barriers to American Leadership in AI. As the name states, this is a position of trying to win a so-called race in AI. I dislike this term because we are not in a race. This shouldn't be the approach. Artificial intelligence is a technology that should benefit everyone in the world. But this is the position of the United States. And only to mention that although there is no comprehensive federal law, there are some states that are approving regulation. An example is California that has approved regulation on deep fakes and in particular entertainment, AI in entertainment, because they are very focused on intellectual property, for instance. But there are hundreds of bills to regulate AI at the state level in the United States. China is another country that has, I would say, comprehensive regulation. This one is not like the EU that has only one very comprehensive, but China has approved 3 main regulations: the interim administrative measures for Gen AI, the regulation on the administration of deep synthesis, Internet Information Technology, and the Internet Information Service algorithmic recommendations management provisions. So in those 3, we have the regulation that applies to generative AI, to deep synthesis, and the third one goes about how the AI system is managed. I will explain this in a moment, but just to mention, so you know what's the 3 of them. The EU, of course, has the EU AI Act. South Korea was the second one approving a comprehensive law, only one, which is the Framework Act on AI Development and Establishment of a Foundation for Trustworthiness. We know it as the AI Basic Act, and very recently, May 28, Japan approved the Act on Promotion of Research and Development and Utilization of AI-related technologies. And as you can see, or maybe the name suggests, both South Korea and Japan have approved laws that are very towards the development and promotion of this technology. Very briefly, just a bit of explanation of what are these. Of course, there are no prohibited AI practices in the United States. In China, there are prohibitions, and this one goes to creating and sharing deepfakes and transmit information which harms the image of the nation or the societal public interest. In the case of the European Union, prohibited AI systems are long, and they are listed in an annex, but here are some so you can get an idea: social credit scoring systems, predictive policing, emotion recognition in workplace and education environments, real-time remote public biometric identification. That's forbidden. South Korea does not prohibit AI practices. Some other interesting obligation that we may see in the future and that have been showing is the fact of having registers. China has registers when we talk about generative AI systems, and this must be approved by the authority, which is the Cyberspace Administration of China, before they can be released to the public. In the case of the European Union, there is a register of a high-risk AI system, that's the database, and also they must undergo a conformity assessment before they are placed on the market. South Korea have no registry. In the case of, let's think about the obligations of the deployers who are developing the AI system. China is very focused on generative AI. And in this case, the obligation is to uphold the core socialist values and use data and foundational models that have lawful sources. In the case of the European Union, there are extensive requirements. Just to name a few, is to have human oversight, documentation keeping, and there is a list of all the documentation that must be kept. There must be, for instance, an assessment on the impact on fundamental rights in the case of high-risk AI system. So there are rules before the AI system is put in place. This is not to say that there are not rules when they are in place. Of course there are. There's the human in the loop, the monitoring afterwards, several information that needs to be sent to authorities. But this is just to give you, because I know you are not lawyers and I don't intend you understand the law from the beginning to end. This is just to give you a full picture of how it's being regulated in the biggest economies at the moment. This is not the only way or the only approach to govern artificial intelligence, to set the rules for AI in a nation. There is also the soft law approach that most of the Asia-Pacific countries are taking. But before going to the Asia-Pacific cases, I would love to know if you guys have questions, concerns, thoughts that you would like to share. So we'll have time for that.
Thank you so much, Paola. This was super cool overview in a nutshell. Just got us all up to speed with the global, regional, but also in a country-specific context. This is just to give you a flair. I see a question from Sahana. Can you unmute, introduce yourself, and ask your question?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, great. So hi, my name is Sahana. I work in India on gender norm change. My organization Breakthrough works on gender norm change. One thing I wanted to know, since we're looking at governance and policies around AI, is, and I think I've asked this question before, but one thing that truly does worry me is the speed at which, the velocity at which AI is being innovation in AI is happening. Sorry. So that to keep up governance and policies with that speed, I just wanted to understand how does a nation go about, or do organizations or larger institutes go about it? Or what are some of the concerns that we have to take care of in this, you know?
Thank you. Great question with matching the speed of evolution of AI. Have another hand, Sue Jen. Haley, introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Seojin or Haley from South Korea. And I just had a simple question because I realized that the laws that each nation have are very different. And I was wondering if you would have any insights about what's like the most like exemplary nation right now, as of now, in terms of the laws that they have for AI.
I was going to make this as a homework to all of you, but you bit me to it. Good scape. All right. And okay, I'm going to take those two questions and we start.
I love your questions, Regine. But let's go to Sana first. Thank you for that insight, because this, if there is one objective of this session, Amanda, I would say, not that you remember the name of the law, but to get these reflections on what are the challenges and how governments are responding in a way. But of course, we need to think how governments respond if this technology is just fast speed. And when they agree on something, maybe the situation is not the same, right? And it happened. Maybe some of you may have followed the European Union discussion on the EUA Act, where they did not consider generative AI, and they had been working for 2 years on the law, and then Gen AI came, ChatGPT became so wide use. In 6 months, they had to work on the generative AI part. So it's the hardest part, and there's no one single solution. The speed of AI will continue going maybe even further, but this is a situation, Sana, that has been happening always. And why I'm telling you this, I started working in technology policy in 2013. By then, we were using, and we were all talking about the cloud, right? Cloud computing. Governments were afraid if they can use the cloud for public services, data protection, cybersecurity. once again, of course, cloud would continue developing. At the moment I was in Microsoft, so I would listen about Azure and first steps on AI. I mean, in Latin America, because we are using AI for several decades now. But governments, they're always with this problem. It's like this. And to be honest, it should be like this. Technology should flourish, innovations come, and only when we see or we foresee public policy problems, the regulation comes. How to match this speed? One solution that has been coming up is the sandboxes. In fact, this means, maybe you would like to then look for more information, but having a regulatory sandbox means that, and usually it's sectoral, so let's think financial services and banks that want to use AI, but is kind of dangerous because of the bias that could be in the system, or even the response of the market, etc. In that way, the agency in charge, the regulator, will work with the private sector hand in hand in a controlled space where technology is being developed in a pilot phase, and also the regulator is starting to develop the regulation, both in hand. There are some examples of sandboxes in financial sector, in health. Both are sensitive sectors, but this is one solution. But of course, you might think, okay, Paola, but we cannot do this at the national level. And in fact, I have not seen that. But that's why, to keep up, what governments are doing is, first, they adhered to international frameworks, and then when we see UNESCO, OECD, G20, etc., so that we can have a baseline on what's the government or the nation position towards AI. For instance, is there an agreement on a possibility to use artificial intelligence for legal autonomous weapons? That's an easy one. I mean, the government could decide if that's a yes or no, because it's aligned with position of a country. Then it goes a bit farther, the discussion on what are high risk, or South Korea's definition, high impact AI, right? How a government wants to work with the private sector. Those are different approaches. And this is the moment when I'm passing to question number 2 of Sojin. I cannot tell you which one is the exemplary law, because there is no one single model that applies to all societies. Yeah. The European Union adopted a very comprehensive law. They have an AI office at the moment. They are working on several guidelines, code of practices. Can you imagine if all this heavy work is approved in a country that has half of the GDP or even population? It will not work. What's the status of the innovation ecosystem? Is there an AI growing market in your country? I mean, there's no exemplary, because we need to work on regulation that applies to the single country. Yes, there could be a structure to follow. I mean, as a policy advisor, I usually tend, and we must follow, for instance, clear definitions, and let's not go away international definitions. Why? Because that way you are taking away your country from international agreements that can also then help for trade agreements, for instance. So an AI definition that has been reviewed and updated was the OECD AI definition that was updated in 2024, if I'm not wrong, 2024. So let's not be creative in that sense. And then you reinstate principles that have been agreed by the whole world or the majority. And then it's good to think how you want to go with either risk-based approach. Okay, the country will divide into the risks posed to the society, or either you work on specific actions. those are different things, but this is the beginning of a approach that a government can bring.
Yeah. Okay. So we have more questions, but maybe we'll go to the last section. And we answer them all at the end.
I agree. Yes, I will be fast, so we can have at least 10 minutes of Q&A. And I wanted to share with you some case studies from the region, from Asia Pacific, because, and this is aligned also to what we see in the first slide, right? What's the approach, the position of the society and governments? The society is open, is excited about this technology, open to use it, they want to develop it as well, and they trust governments will regulate this responsibly. What Asia Pacific countries have been doing, except for instance from South Korea, Japan, is adopt a soft law approach, which means we are approving guidelines, strategies, action plans, and roadmaps that are guiding this development without creating specific obligations. But the way, for instance, Singapore is adopting it in a way that is working very close with the private sector, with the AI Verify that I will mention in a bit, it's working well. I mean, we see in Singapore a private sector that goes and work hand in hand with the government. And let's go to that. Singapore approved an AI strategy in 2023, the updated one, and the emphasis goes into commitment to a responsible AI ecosystem that fosters innovation and growth. And for that, they want agile regulatory approaches. That's why there is experimentation, and the government itself, through the Infocom Media Development Authority, we all know them as IMDA, and the Personal Data Protection Commission created this model AI governance framework on ethical and AI governance practices. And we see that it follows OECD principles such as explainability, data accountability, transparency principles. So this governance framework is the one that is guiding the country at the moment. At the same time, they expanded this framework with the AI Verify Foundation. And there is one picture that the picture when they launched it to the right of your screen. And this goes specifically to address generative AI. Hallucinations, they provided a solution which is watermarking so that people can know when they are interacting or facing content produced by generative AI. Also, prompt engineering risks. This AI Verified toolkit is embedding OECD principles, and in fact the OECD recognized this as a best practice. How does this work? It generates reports, test reports of AI system, and this promotes the transparency with the regulators and the stakeholders of a specific system. In fact, it's positive that the private sector has handy a toolkit, a solution that helps them analyze how they did when they develop the system, and it gives them the possibility to amend if there is something to amend. In the case of Thailand, and in fact, I mention it because I'm in this country at the moment, I'm in Bangkok, and I came to join the UNESCO Global Forum on the Ethics of AI. That's why the picture that I upload is taken by me. And I decided to read a bit how they are doing. Thailand decided to approve a 5-year strategy. This is AI and a strategy and action plan. Here, the authorities are the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, and it works hand in hand with the Electronic Transactions Development Agency. As you saw also in the case of Singapore, there are also 2 agencies working together because artificial intelligence is transversal, and most of the time, data protection authorities are involved in these efforts. So as I said, the EDA and the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society launched guidelines. Apart from the strategy, those are guidelines for the application of generative AI with good governance for organizations. Thailand is also putting a lot of effort and intention to develop core infrastructure. The Prime Minister announced during the forum $15.4 billion to invest in core infrastructure, and 61 million that is already invested in open source AI platform and a national data center. So Thailand, with their action plan to 5 years, well, it's going to be in 2027, but they are planning to updated it because they did the readiness as a methodology, and these recommendations will be included in the updated strategy. They are focused on innovation, developing the market in the country. And also Thailand want to be seen as a hub in the region, as they announced the AI Governance Practice Center in Bangkok, which will help the region to promote information exchange and do training and foster international collaboration. Last but not least, Indonesia is an interesting case because they created a 25-year strategy in this case. So it's long-term what they are focused, also rooted in ethics, talent development, infrastructure and data, research and industrial innovation. Additionally, in 2023, the Ministry of Communication and Informatics approved a circular letter on AI ethical guidelines, and that emphasized on the principles and proposing a general framework for responsible AI implementation. They also announced recently having a National Data and AI Ethics Council. So in that sense, it will not be only the Ministry of Communication and Informatics in charge, but there will be a council. It means different agencies in the government that will be in charge of that. And in fact, that is a very good practice that we're seeing internationally in Latin America. I've seen that in Asia Pacific. And as you may have seen as well, the European Union, even though they have an AI office, each country has a supervisor. But for instance, what I saw, and I had the opportunity to speak with some of them here in Bangkok because of the forum, they have several agencies in this supervisory because they have council meetings that help them agree on what's happening in terms of cyber defense, security, data protection, right? The part of infrastructure and connectivity. So that's why what Indonesia is doing is a very good best practice. Thank you very much for your attention. I know we only have 7 minutes, but I'll be happy to answer all your questions or hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you so much, Paola. That was amazing. Believe me, everyone, this is like, you can go to a master degree to get that glimpse of information in less than 1 hour. So we're really appreciative of your expertise and sharing all of that. I have a question that I couldn't stop thinking of.
What's that?
Mostly from that slide where we're seeing the excitement about AI versus the concern about AI. And how Asia, or like a lot of countries in the top most excited about it, are actually from Asia, and they're not the one producing the AI, or yet. And then you have the one who are mostly concerned about it, are the one who's leading on AI and leading in the development of AI. And I wonder if this is like now change in the environment where when Asia, with the labor hand of all of the cheap labor, all of the tech and the parts that is being produced, now shifting toward, okay, automation is going to cut that need for massive hands to automation. We need to catch up to become the hubs for data centers or to produce the technology or catch up.
Yeah.
Where do you see, how the position of like the region, it's hard to, of course, say when we see different country levels, regions and things, but where do you see that excitement and now shift in the policy from being protective to more of we want to invest in this? And is that a trend you think is going to continue, or do you think there's going to be a drop and going to be a shift in the trend toward how people feel and how governments feel?
Well, first, that's very interesting because, in fact, when we discuss tech adoption, and also excitement. This has been always the trend in terms of Europe. Even though there is technology and they have the resources, they will always be concerned of protective, the protectionism, and that's why Europe is known as the standard setting in terms of regulation. There's the one always putting the most comprehensive regulation possible, whereas in most developing countries, there are a couple of Latin America, but mostly Asian, they're always open to this new technology and innovation.
Okay.
But now, the fact that this technology comes with automation and the risk of displacing very, let's say, well-settled roles, that has created a bit, in my opinion, increase of this positiveness and excitement. And in fact, how governments are now more prone to let's invest, let's take advantage of this tense geopolitical situation, right? Because this is not a secret, and there are a lot of possibilities for them to position themselves. In fact, I am always very surprised that the African Union is very present in global forums and discussing trying to position themselves. When I see Thailand hosting the global forum, announcing this big investment, they were also Asian countries. They will also present. Participated in the AI Action Summit in Paris in February this year. Delegation of the Asian countries were there, confirming their commitment to develop this and to be at the forefront of this situation. Once again, let's not use the word race, but this is a journey that no one should be left behind.
Yeah.
And the Asian countries are there. I think this trend is going to continue. And I see a lot of possibilities. In fact, there is a WEF report that shows that in Asia, there is a lot to receive as results, let's say, if they continue investing. So,
how much of that discussion in focus on regulation, but also like on women, the impact on women and the gender elements of AI? How many do you see from all of those delegations are actually women?
Unfortunately, not many.
Okay.
That's the minority. Thank you for that, because indeed I forgot to mention some of the gender aspects of the regulation. When we hear in the delegation speeches that are relating mostly of disparities, they are concerned on the workforce that is being impacted.
Yeah.
It comes from female authorities, unfortunately, because, and I pay attention to this, most of men focus at the moment, most on the investment and the opportunities. So this is something that should change. But yeah, and also in the overall discussion, this the gender topic, unfortunately, is a topic that is not being discussed enough. Gender and climate, the impact on environment, is not taking the importance it should in the agenda.
Well, wait for the graduates of the AI school. I will be fixing that situation. So we're having a lot to hope for you guys. All right, so we have two questions in the Q&A. One from Manju, where we don't have adequate regulatory oversight or data protection laws, what can be done to avoid the potential risk of adopting AI technologies?
Can you repeat? Is the second, right?
Yes.
But you're going to developing.
So when there is no protection, when there are countries that haven't done the work yet or figured out what to do, what can we do to avoid the risks?
Yeah, and I can mention some examples that maybe some of you are already suffering, for instance, and there are countries or organizations using artificial intelligence for surveillance. And there is no data protection law, right? So what do we do? that way, I say, let's use technology that is hard to be broken. For instance, messaging platforms that have end-to-end encryption. That means no one, not even a judiciary, that sometimes without judiciary resolutions, they want to go and break communication technology. Or sometimes they go to the judge and it's easily to get one, but end-to-end encryption, sorry, no one can access your communication. As users, I know, and I really dislike putting the responsibility on the user, because it must be on the technology company that does privacy by default technology, but that's not the case. So if there's no regulation, we must be super careful and check which platforms are using our data to train their systems. I am completely independent, so I'm happy to say that OpenAI uses your data by default to train. So if you guys don't want that and you have not done it already, go to settings and change that. You can opt out. Unfortunately, it should be opt out from the beginning, but it's crazy. Or you can check, I mean, and this is not advertising myself, but you can check people that are working on the topic, and we usually tend to say comparison. For instance, I use Claude as an LLM because it's the most caring in terms of privacy. What else? And yeah, let's be very critical with the results of these technologies. Let's all try to challenge that, always look for sources. And well, you know more than me, the technical part, but we need to be very, very careful with this.
Right. I think the next classes will also gonna give you an insider look of what is happening inside all of those LLMs, and
Okay.
you'll be in one day you'll be one of the developers, and another day you'll be a user,
Yeah.
and then a third day you'll be a policymaker.
Yeah.
So you'll be wearing all of those hats to know exactly what could be done at that moment. I'll take one last question from Aman because it's also really great. You've shown us a lot of policy frameworks, and then is there a good start point to learn about human rights and governance, or do you have a favorite one that you think it's very inclusive of all of the good practices?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a perfect, but a good start to like.
Yeah.
learn
Yeah,
from.
in fact, the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI is pretty complete in terms of human rights, and why I really appreciate that having that framework approved by so many countries is because it's not only stating the principles that OECD has, but the recommendation provides actions, like what policy should be done by the government, and is human rights centric. This one. And second, in fact, many people have not reviewed, but the Council of Europe AI Treaty, because that's the Convention on AI, Human Rights, the rule of law and democratic values, is very complete in that sense. The weak part is that governments have the flexibility to choose this implementation in the private sector, which shouldn't be like this. It should be applied to the whole country, private and public sector. But if you want to read and be informed in terms of AI and human rights, those two are very complete.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paola, again. This was wonderful. I learned a lot. It's really difficult to navigate all of that space, but you made it very clear and simple.
Hopefully.
This is a good start, everyone, to start your advocacy journey. The good news is that Paola is also one of our key members of our AI school steering committee. So she's trapped with us for more sessions whenever we need to call in her. She's been always helpful with us from the design to now, but we'll definitely bring her back for more mentorship for specific questions. And at the end of the AI school, if any of you will have some of the projects, especially answering the question, what is the ultimate AI policy, or that is gender inclusive, look like? I hope some of you will take that project and then we'll bring her to give a critical overview of this. So we'll be sharing with you the recording and the information on all the papers that also Paola have sent to us for reading. Post readings will be on the Google Classroom. We appreciate that if you take a few minutes to do the post-class assessment and send feedback to Paola and us about this session. And we'll be seeing you on next Tuesday for the class in prompt engineering. With this class, we end the foundational phase of the AI school, and then we start the technical fun trip with using AI in better ways. So next class will be in prompt engineering, and then on Thursday we'll have the expert talk. I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great rest of the week and great weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.